I'll find answers in the garden. For better or worse. Now that you mention it, I did try and awaken my soul to become fully aware of my past lives. Every animancer tries and fails. It's practically a rite of passage. So, one evening, I crept into the workshop and cobbled an invention together from spare parts. Amateur work. Then I turned it on. Big mistake. The next thing I knew, it was morning. I was floating in the fountain, and my head was pounding like a drum.
You don't need animancy for that. Just rum and a crew on shore leave.
That answers a lot of questions, honestly.
Sometimes I wonder, what if it actually worked? What if all of this happened before, and I'm just reliving the events of a past life? I try not to think about it too much. Ah, a simple question with a very complicated answer. The device is attuned to the spiritual energy of the living lands, much like a compass to magnetic north. But essence is chaotic by nature. As you saw with your own eyes, imposing order on chaos is not without risk. Not for long. Don't get me wrong, this invention is a small miracle, but it isn't enough. The phantasmal focus was supposed to be the start of something grand. One lever of a device that exists only in theory. Perhaps it should remain that way. I'll tell you whatever I know. Ah, you want a story? Very well. Settle in. It all started about 50 years ago, in the great city of Spirento. A young nobleman by the name of Maxim Vidaro sought to inherit a distinguished government position. We'll get to that. A distant cousin cheated Maxim out of the title. He was devastated, his political future uncertain. No one lifted a finger to help. Not the banks, not the merchants, or the politicians. So, Maxim did what Valians do best. Not exactly, but close. Maxim plotted his revenge. They say he prayed to Scan, the effigy, god of rebellion and defiance, to ask for a blessing. And Scan answered. Take their best and brightest, their heirs, their scholars, their futures, to the far side of the world, never to return. And Maxim did just that. He gathered a following and left the Valian republics, giving thanks to his dark god. We prefer to call it an intellectual haven of free thinkers, but it's true that most of us are animancers. Spirento was full of animancers, many of them in debt, and Maxim was a wealthy patron. They needed each other. So the animancers followed Maxim all the way out here, including my parents, Quilici, and others around town. At the time, this place was an animancer's dream. No oversight, limited government, and soil rich with essence. 40 years later, Maxim vanished. They say the effigy came to collect his soul. Of course, you and I know better. He died peacefully, content that what he made would outlast him. And now, Maxim Vidaro's great achievement is a smoldering ruin. Thanks for listening. We should do this again.
I love a good ghost story. Just not the dreams I have afterwards.
Hadn't heard all that before. Probably a lesson or two in there.
One of these days you'll have to tell me an Adiran ghost story. You learn a lot about people by what scares them. Look around. My home was destroyed, and the land is dying all around us. What more is there to say? Pleasant dreams.
Envoy? Gods, I can't believe what's happening around here. Fior has been destroyed. Just like that. Leaving home behind is one thing. Losing it forever is another. I couldn't imagine. Giada has taken some hits lately, and she's still here. I guess there's something to take away from that. Right, changing the subject. Ask away. Yes, I did. The less we talk about that, the better. I see. Let's lay this out, Envoy. How about this? You don't worry about my life story, and I won't roll my eyes every time you start talking about souls. Now, we just met, Envoy, and I'm here to do a job. Maybe we'll be best of friends someday, but this isn't that day. Best we just keep things professional. Thank you. Not everyone accepts that some things are best left in the past. Well, I'm one of the very few people who spends most of their time out in the wilds and haven't gotten themselves killed yet. I know the difference between hay-bleed toxin and high-tox bloom, which is something you should be really thankful for. And you know the Balrog and the Grinning Balrog? Probably the meanest living thing out in the wilds. Just as soon tear you apart as look at you. I am one of the few who have seen a Balrog and lived. Mostly because I had the brains to run the Dragu out of there. We're gonna get you where you're going, Envoy. Alive and with as few blithe tail bites as possible. That, more or less, is all you need to know about me. Oh? Do tell. We've already talked about this. I hope this isn't going to be a problem. That much is obvious. I'm not that interesting, and I really don't like talking about the past. Let's worry about keeping you alive for now. Good? No, I didn't poison that drink. Even the rankest Nimdude walking doesn't deserve that kind of death. They clearly heard about my reputation and thought I'd do something like that. Question is, why would he drink from that cup? Right. There's the lesson for you. Never be too thirsty. If he was a real hunter, he'd have studied his target and known what I was capable of. Lucky for me, he was just a tourist in need of a good reminder. More often than you think. Someone's always trying to get a reputation by going after people who have one. Turns out those of us who have a reputation sometimes came by it honestly. We've already talked about this. Good. What do you need? Oh, you noticed. I don't know. I've heard stories all my life about the gods and magic, and they never seem to do any good for anyone. Right, sure. But from what I've seen, it mostly causes problems. Magic gives a lot of power to some people and leaves others helpless. And animancy? Don't get me started on messing with other people's souls. That's just not right. It's just Pargrunin wilderness lore, developed over the centuries in Solace. Tricks, traps, gadgets, nothing more. But hey, if people want to think it's magic, then go ahead. I'm not gonna bend over backward just to seem internally consistent. Almost all of them. Andra pulling down the moon to destroy civilization. The Godhammer bomb. All that stuff down in the Deadfire. No one as fickle as those gods seem to be should ever be put in charge of reincarnation, I tell you that. I don't know how you missed it. The god Aethys woke up one day and decided to stomp his way across the world. Imagine an enormous, unstoppable statue destroying everything in sight. I heard he wanted to destroy the wheel and end reincarnation forever. I wasn't there, but it all happened just a few years ago. Strange you hadn't heard of it. Somebody who was a prophet of Aethys decided to start a holy war. To stop him, his enemies built a giant bomb that could kill a god. Stories say the goddess Magrin helped them build it. Sounds about right to me. Anyway, the bomb went off and killed a lot of people. People who wouldn't have died if gods hadn't decided to bicker about. Basically, the goddess Andra wanted a civilization dead, so she pulled down the moon to do it. They say Abidan shattered the moon to save the people, and then threw himself in the way of the largest shard. And for his interference, Andra built Abidan a statue as a tribute. Makes no sense at all. Right. More trouble than they're worth, if you ask me. Right, sure. But from what... I mean, feel free to cast all the spells and just... Same one you are. What kind of blessed question is that? Oh, I see. I sometimes use Lember without really thinking about it. That's what you mean, right? Right. I hear Pargrunin all over the world speak it. I only know what I learned in Solace. I barely realize I'm doing it anymore. If you want to learn Lember, you'll have to spend time in Solace. And that's not going to happen anytime blessed soon. Ah, right. Something like that. I'm sure you'll pick it up as we travel. It's not that blessed difficult. Right, changing the subject. If I must.
hope Thirdborn is a good community.
What have you found?
They call themselves the Akita. They worship this strange child.
Boudica will be displeased to hear it.
Boudica is never pleased. That is all I have. The rest is none of my concern.
Still, you refuse to take sides. This affects you too, you know.
I admit my sympathy. A group of exiles. A forbidden faith. But the Queen's tenuous favor. Yes. Compelling indeed.
The burned queen against a single settlement. If your question is one of power, the answer speaks for itself.
It does. Though I will say this. The Queen may have her motives. Sometimes standing idly by is greater subterfuge than action.
I hope this does not force all our hands.
There. Adds a little culture to the camp, doesn't it?
You know, people don't think Steam Thistle has any medicinal.